giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode, and I am super pumped for this one. We're going to be talking about fees, and the reason why we're going to be is because I got asked by Carrie at an event, how do you start charging fees? So if you've been around any length of time or we've spent any time together, you might know I have a little bit of a sarcastic tone. So when I read this question, my response was send an invoice. Because really and truly, how do you get started in charging fees? You just simply send an invoice. It's actually that easy. But you know, the reality is it's not as easy as it sounds. Because if it was, then this wouldn't be the question. Because we all know all you got to do is send an invoice. Instead, the question needs to be, what's stopping you from charging fees? Or why have you not been charging fees up till now? You know, I think there's a lot of reasons that we could try and justify why we shouldn't be charging fees, or why you shouldn't be charging fees, or why you should only be charging a little fee versus a big fee, or whatever that looks like. But honest to goodnessly, it's garbage. Okay, so apparently I'm just in a little bit of a blunt sort of mood. But the reality is that if your differentiator is the fact that you're the same price as the internet, the moment you say the same, you are not different. That is first and foremost. Pricing or lack thereof is not a differentiator, because there will always be somebody cheaper. There will always be somebody with a better deal. And quite frankly, the clients who are drawn to you for that reason will run away from you just as fast the moment you're not still the quote unquote cheapest. So we want to make sure that we're understanding the why. Why have you not charged it up till now? Or why have you not charged as much as you believe that you should be charging? Because there's so many other elements that go into it. And ultimately, when people say to me, I lose clients when I ask them about my fees, or when I put it out there, then it's crickets, or it's all these other sorts of things. And I'm here to tell you, it's quite often in the delivery. It's quite often in the punctuation, legitimately. Because when you say to a client, so I charge fees, is that okay? You just put a question mark on the end. First off, is it okay? Does your lawyer say, I'm going to charge you? Is that okay? No, they're just, in order to work with me, this is what my retainer is. In order to work with me, this is what this costs. In order to work with me, this is the process. Those all end in either a period or an exclamation, depending on the type of personality you are. They don't end with a question mark. I also wanted to, back when I made up the notes for this episode, I had seen somebody in the industry talking about cancellation fees. And they were promoting a cancellation fee. And I will say, as much as I am pro fees on every level, this is the one that I believe you are setting yourself up for failure with, because it's an additional fee to issue their cancellation. If I have to pay you money in order to get something I'm otherwise owed, that feels a little extortion-y. Like, legit. The other thing is I would suspect that is one of the first, fastest, easiest chargeback claims that can be done. And you don't want to be dealing with chargebacks unless they are absolutely critically necessary. And I'm not saying this as a fear, but I'm actually saying this from the logistics perspective, that to charge a cancellation fee so that somebody can get back a refund that they are otherwise owed seems like a really big misstep. One, like I said, little extortion-y. Two, How does that customer journey factor look? 3, 95% of your clients, 99% of your clients that have to cancel and are getting a refund aren't doing it because they want to. They're canceling because they have to. Somebody got sick, somebody ended up in an accident, somebody's passed, whatever it is. So when you look at it, not from quote unquote the business perspective in terms of your paycheck, but look at it from the business perspective of your client customer journey. How are you going to make your client feel? Great. So you might get that commission or not that commission, but you might get that fee for that one transaction. But what are the chances you're going to get the future business? So if instead of doing that cancellation fee, you just charge the fees up front and those fees were non-refundable, and therefore in the event of a cancellation, there is no refund on that. They can get it from the supplier, but your fee is non-refundable. That has a different experience on the client journey. Now, let's talk about money. It's okay to make money. I don't know if anybody ever told you that. It's okay for you to make money. It's okay for you to make money from your clients. It's okay to charge for your expertise, your time, and the way it is that you care and look after your clients and their files. You are going to save them time. You're going to give them confidence, and you're going to help them to make the best possible decisions for them. There is a value in that, and it's okay to make money. A lot of times we have this stigma of if I charge my client, well, then I'm taking from them. Let's just be real. I struggle with that from time to time when I'm pricing some of my products. I'm like, that it's this mental shift of you're paying for what's inside my head. You're paying for my thoughts. But the reality is what you as a travel advisor are paying for when you join Travel Advisor Success Studio, purchase one-to-one coaching, join Curious to Booked, whatever it is, you are paying for access to nearly 20 years and millions and millions and millions of dollars in sales experience for how to build your travel business, how to sell more travel, how to work with clients, how to overcome objections, how to have actual real experience versus theory or somebody's read about or thought about, but you are paying for the express lane of access to how to answer those problems. Being a travel advisor is not a vow of poverty. It is okay to make money, even if you are doing this for quote unquote fun. On a previous episode, and I'm going to link it up. I want to say it was probably in the first 100 episodes. Well, it was in the first 100 episodes, but possibly even in the first 50 episodes or so. We did an episode talking about looking at it from the client perspective. How does charging fees enhance the client experience? Would they rather pay a fee or only be held to offering commissionable products, even if a better option exists? Like, that's a significant part of the equation when you look at it. If you were the client, and I'm not just talking about travel, but from any product, if you were the client and you had questions about how the people are getting paid, or better yet, that you know that they're commissionable, because that's something that I see with a lot of travel advisors. They're like, I'm the same price as the internet. The suppliers pay me commission. Would you ever wonder, maybe it's just me, but would you ever wonder, is this the best option out there? Is this just how they're getting the best commission? Because when somebody's on commission, and especially when it's promoted as being, I work for a commission, you get a little commission breath factor going on. And when you have commission breath, then it's no longer about the client, but instead about who's going to pay you, how you're going to get paid. As a client, I would never, ever want to feel like possibly there's a better option out there, but it wasn't offered to me because the commission wasn't as good. it's something to think about. And definitely, if you haven't listened to that episode, we'll link it up in the show notes. Go back, listen to it, because it was a really good episode. It was actually part of a summit that I did, I don't know, a couple years ago. And it's one that has been referred to many, many times. So how do you choose the amount of the fee? Well, I'm sorry to say there's no standardized there's no standardized amount. When clients come to me, when I'm working with travel advisors and they're like, I don't even know where to start, we have this conversation. Well, if you were going to lose a client, or if you said to a client, I'm going to charge you $10 a person, and they say, I'll never pay that. Do you actually want to work with that client, or are they going to fill you with a lot of resentment to work with them? If they don't even think the time, energy, effort, and expertise you put into it is worth $10, how does that make you feel? And most of my clients will always say, oh, yeah, no, $10? I'm not working for them for $10. The ones that say, well, if it's $10 and I lose them, then I don't really want to work with them, usually aren't my clients anyways. But for the majority of travel advisors, when we put it in that perspective, they're like, if they wouldn't pay me $10 on a $10,000 vacation for my expertise, then they're not my ideal client. So my suggestion is to step it up. What would they say at $20? What would they say at $30? What would they say at $40? And not just what would they say, how do you feel about it? So I always suggest going to the level where it moves you past the level of resentment. When you would no longer resent them for saying no, that's where you start. Between that number and the last one of resentment. And then from there, I want you to start creeping it up over as time goes on. You've got to decide without question, are you worth the fee? Because if you put a question mark on the end of it, nobody's going to pay your fee, or the likelihood of them paying it is dramatically lower. You know, I talk with travel advisors all the time. They're like, I just talked to somebody who charges a $500 per person fee. I can't get people to pay me a $25 fee. What the heck? So then we work through it. And guess what? It's usually the fact that they're like, so I had to change things in my business, you know, because in the post-pandemic world and everything else. So now I hope it's okay with you, but we're going to have to charge a fee. Is that okay? You know, versus, hi, I am so happy to be working with you. I know that when we work together, we're going to give you the best possible itinerary and we're going to blow it out of the water. So here's how it looks to work with me. First, we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, and we're going to do this. In exchange for all of that, I do charge a fee. The fee is charged, you know, maybe you do it for research, maybe you do it at time of booking, however you choose to do it, just charge it. And with that, this is what you get. And you just see it so matter-of-factly, so right in front. You know that if you put a question mark on something, people are going to push back. If you've ever raised kids or babysat kids or anything else, if you don't leave it firm, you know, if you were to say to them, you need to eat your vegetables, you don't say it with a question mark. You say it with a period, with an exclamation. You're like, you're going to need to eat those vegetables. It might even be you need to eat those vegetables in order to have your dessert. You don't say to them, well, would you rather have your vegetables or would you rather have your dessert? It's not something you make negotiable. Your fee needs to be a non-negotiable. And the hardest person, 99 times out of 100, to convince that it is a non-negotiable is the person charging the fee. See, once it is so fully ingrained in you, it's non-negotiable. And when something's non-negotiable, it's just an accepted fact. When you go to the McDonald's drive-thru, or you go to this, or you go to that, I just spent the day going from bank to bank to bank, doing a bunch of banking, getting things done, renewing my mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't get to just go in and go wherever I wanted. There were places I had to go stand. There were lineups I had to stand in. I had to take my turn for all these things. And it's because that's the process that they have. You don't get to just go in and demand, at least not without them hitting a silent alarm. But there's a process to how things are done. You have to decide, what is your process? What is your non-negotiable? Are you going to charge fees? If so, yes, how much? What does that look like? Now, a question I quite often get is, my host agency doesn't allow me to charge fees. Or I will also talk with travel advisors and like, what should I be looking for in a host agency? I will always say, if you are forbidden to charge fees, and that's one of the things that they talk about right at the beginning of the host and everything else, I'm actually going to suggest that you look for a different host before you sign with that one. If you're already with them, it becomes something to think about. But if you are in the process of looking for a host, to me, that is a red flag. One, because a host agency that does not believe that they can charge fees actually makes me wonder about their overall training, about their overall positioning, about their overall differentiator. Because if their brand can't stand as a premium product, I don't know how you sell premium goods. And travel is not a necessity. It really and truly is not. We might feel that way with our mental health and everything else, that I need to travel. But the reality is, we need to have a roof over our head. We need to have food, clothing, shelter. Travel is a luxury item. It is a premium product. We need to be aligning ourselves and working with companies who understand that we are in a luxury industry. We're in an industry of indulgences, of fun, of things that won't necessarily hit that immediate, most needed, survival skills part of the budget. So then the next question I get, should you not charge previous clients? Or increasing fees, how often, and is it only to the new clients? Well, here's something that I'm going to say. If you are charging fees, let me rephrase my words. When you are charging fees, because language matters, so I don't want to use if. When you go to charge fees, when you charge your fees, it should be across the board. Because one thing is that if you have clients that end up getting to know each other for whatever reason, and I promise you, we live in a very small inbred sort of world where we all get to know people from all over the planet. I have friends in Australia. I have friends in the UK. I have friends in California, all across the US. And I came from this little itty bitty teeny tiny village. I lived out in the country. And the village itself was like 180 people. And I'm pretty sure they counted half the chickens to get that number. So I live in the middle of nowheres, like nowheres. And yet we now live in this global world where we're able to talk with people, meet with people, get to connect with people all the time. So I would never want to establish my business based on, I'll do this for this one and this for this one and this for this one, because you never know when their circles are going to overlap. Having a consistency across your business makes a significant difference. The other thing is if a past client who has seen the value you bring to the table, who knows the attention to detail that you have, who knows how well you take care of them, doesn't see value in paying for that, then they probably weren't going to stick around if you weren't always the cheapest, if they found something on Groupon, if they found a deal on one of the OTAs or whatever it was, they were out of there. I was listening to a podcast, actually, it was a Dave Ramsey one. And this was something that he said. I actually wrote it down. Separate rules creates entitlement. And with your fees, you should be increasing them annually. So that came out of something where it said, well, should I only be charging? When he was talking with this person on his podcast, they were going to have to implement higher costs for these products, but they didn't necessarily want to increase the fees that they had been charging some of their other clients. I don't even remember what kind of business this was or anything. I want to say it might have been like a marketing agency, or it was some sort of agency type work, I think. And so that's when he said separate rules create entitlement, and that you should be increasing your fees every year. See, here's the interesting thing. When you increase your fees every year, they're small little steps. But if you wait 5 years to increase your fees, you're going to have to do a big fee increase in order to do it. When I owned my agency, I started off with a flat rate on our sun packages, cruise packages, things of that nature. And it was a flat fee. This is how much it was. And every year I increased by $5 a passenger. Because when we first started, I think I started off at $25 a passenger, I want to say. So like if you booked a sun package, it was $25 a passenger. So on a family of 6, it was $150 for the family. These were charter, so these were a little bit different. They were super slick, easy, pretty straightforward. And it was definitely a volume thing. I did hundreds of passengers a year. So when you have hundreds of passengers and you were charging $25 a person, it adds up. We also did a lot of other things, but it started at 25. The next year went to 30, then 35, then 40, then 45, then 50, and we just kept climbing it. And so when you move it up just a little bit at a time, they don't hardly notice. My hairdresser increases her pricing every single year. And the one time she hadn't actually increased because I had noticed, I was like, oh, that feels like it went up a lot. She's like, I'm so embarrassed. I haven't increased my rates in 2 years, so I had to do a little bit of a bigger jump. And I remember that conversation because I had noticed the increase. I've never noticed it since. And if it wasn't for the fact that I specifically remembered that conversation and I went back, because I always pay with my debit card, I went back through and I looked at it and I'm like, oh, she's totally increased her prices every year. But because it was a small amount, I hardly even noticed because it was irrelevant. When you do it every year, you can do it smaller. One thing also too, he said, and I agree with this wholeheartedly, is when you're making decisions about how much to charge for fees, how much to do for this, how much to do for that, all of the different sorts of things, you have to do it without the client in front of you. So I implemented one-to-one coaching several months ago, and I actually have a 3-month one-to-one coaching that you can do with me. And I had to set the pricing for it without clients in front of me, because otherwise, when I was chatting with clients, working it out, I'd be like, oh my goodness, like that just feels crazy. But yet when I don't have a client, when I don't have a human associated in front of me where I'm looking into their eyes and thinking about it and being like, oh, can I say this number? Oh my goodness, like that seems crazy. But instead, when I did it with nobody in front of me, I wrote out what my offer was. I wrote out how much time I spend with them, what they're going to get, what do they get in between their coaching calls, how often, how this, how that. And I wrote it all out and I assigned a value. So for example, when you do a 3-month, 90-day accelerator, it starts with a half-day coaching call. That all on its own is about $1,000 to spend half a day with me to go in depth in your business. There's an onboarding process so that we can get really to the core of it all, so that the moment we're on that coaching call, we are ready to go. Then we have coaching calls every 2 weeks after that for the whole 90 days. There's Voxer access in between, or WhatsApp, depending which one they prefer. We go through all of that, the amount of availability that they get with me. And this is what it costs. And so I remember when I first offered it, I offered it at a certain point. Then we moved it up, we moved it up, we moved it up. Do you want to know what happened when we moved it up to the point it's at right now? The people who set up sales calls, who wanted to ask about it, had all paid their invoice before the next morning. And I don't do payment plans on the 90-day. It is a set price. This is how much it is. I will send you the invoice. End of story. It's not a payment plan project. It is not anything. Like, it's this much and this is what you do with it. And the thing is everybody who's done a sales call for that product has bought it because they knew what it solved. They knew what they were getting. But if I would have tried to come up with my price with the client directly in front of me, I would have stuttered. I would have stammered. I would have second guessed it. I would have put question marks on the end of it. Instead, when I built out what my product suite was, so therefore, this is what the Travel Advisor Success Studio is. This is what Curious to Booked costs. This is what this coaching package costs. This is what this coaching package costs. I sit down and look at it based on what are they going to get? How does that look? How does that appear? What is all of the pieces in it? And then I go from there. Our group coaching plans, absolutely. We offer payment plans, the membership Travel Advisor Success Studio. You can do a monthly, you can do an annual, although annual this year, we're going to be jazzing things up. When we go into launches from time to time, there might be a bonus that comes out just for the annual. And there's just different things that go into it. But if I was trying to make all of those decisions with somebody right there live, it gets a whole lot trickier. And sometimes you back yourself into a corner that you don't want to be in. But when you can sit down and make up your product suite, so maybe your product suite is, what are your fees for a Disney package? What are your fees for a sun package? What are your fees for a river cruise? What are your fees for a safari? What are your fees for this, that, or the other? Are you going to do it based on the number of days? Are you going to do it based on the number of passengers? Are you going to do it based on the complexity of what it is that they're looking for? When you can build out your product suite so that you have a fee sitting on the shelf for whatever it is that they're looking to do, it is a total game changer in terms of the way that you talk about it. Because if I said to you, how much for that box of pasta on the store shelf, there's a price tag sitting right there. The store clerk isn't going to be, well, let me look. I'm so sorry. It's $6.99. Like, I know that's a lot. No, they're just going to say it's $6.99. If you buy that one, it's half price. You know, whatever the case might be, it is what it is. So I'm going to encourage you, when you are building out your product suite for what your fees cost, make it a non-negotiable. Put it on the store shelf. Put it up there. Know what it's going to cost. You don't necessarily have to publish it somewhere, although that's definitely an option too. But know for yourself. Maybe it sits just offside of your monitor. Maybe you, in where your desk sits, you have a wall right over here. I have my calendar with all my notes, so I have some other things there. But maybe you put something there and it tells you this is how much your fees are. And that is what you follow. And then every year, I want you to reevaluate, maybe even every 6 months, sit down and reevaluate. Are you still in alignment with the fees that you're charging? And every time you get a pushback on your fee, I want you to be really, really, really open-minded about how the conversation went. How did you feel while you were talking about the fee? How did it feel coming out? What kind of punctuation did you put on that? Were you confident in what you were sharing? Were you confident in saying, I'm freaking fabulous and this is what I do? The reality is, when I sold travel full time, I got pushback on my fees. I think my biggest fee I ever charged was $2,000 for one person. And I was okay with that. I charged several $500 fees. I charged a couple of $1,500 fees. I think I charged a couple of them that were $2,000. One I charged in around there. Maybe it was actually a little bit more of it, but it was a per person and it was for a group. But I remember the day that I charged somebody $2,000 and it was a single passenger, and her response was, "Is there tax on top of that?" Yep. Do you accept credit card? Yep. You know, it's how you handle it. But I had people that would push back. You want me to pay $50? Why? And I said, because quite frankly, I'm freaking fabulous at what I do and I know my stuff. You are welcome to go online and spend endless hours trying to figure it out yourself. But if you want me to look after it and you want me to help guide you through it, this is what I charge. I look after you from the beginning right through to the end. I am going to help you to find the right options that are perfect for you, that are going to fit within the price bracket of what you're looking for without having to question whether or not you made the right choice. It's entirely up to you. And you know what? When you believe to your core because you are freaking fabulous, your clients are going to believe it too. Charging a fee is not the deal breaker of your business that a lot of people think it could be. Instead, it might be the reason those really ideal clients aren't working with you because they can't figure out how it is that it's too good to be true, how it is that you can actually work for quote unquote the same price as the internet. That doesn't seem right. So in which case, next time you're looking to up your fees, I want you to sit down away from your clients, away from everything, and think about what is your fee worth? How much time are you putting in? If you never got paid from a supplier, because that may end up happening, if you never got paid from a supplier, how much will it take to have made it worthwhile for you to have done the work? Until next time, happy selling.